Book lovers, book buyers, book enthusiasts, welcome to Trisha by the Book. My name is Trisha, and today we're going to do another reading challenge. This time, I really want to focus on reading 2 hours, at least 2 hours every single day. And I aim to finish those 5 TBR books as soon as possible. So that's what we are going to do. All right, so the first book that I'm going to be reading is You Kill Me First by John Mars. I think the TBR prompt that I chose for this book was read a book with multiple POVs. And we all know, if you've been watching this channel, that John Mars does do multiple POVs really well. I also want you to see the background. I think it's... I want to be out of focus. Yeah, my face might not so, but look at the view, guys. See. So yeah, I'm in this beautiful place. I have mountains as a backdrop. So I think I'm gonna be reading I'm gonna be putting in a lot of time, Just look at the view. Wow. Whew.
You Kill Me First follows three women living on the same quiet suburban street, each hiding dangerous secrets behind seemingly perfect lives. When a glamorous new neighbor arrives, friendships quickly turn into rivalries, lies begin to unravel, and long buried resentments spiral into obsession. The story opens with someone trapped inside a blazing bonfire night pyre, then rewinds to reveal how an ordinary neighborhood descends into a deadly game of manipulation, revenge, and betrayal.
I finished 188 pages of this book, and I ended right at the cliffhanger because part 2 is just about to begin. So I'm intrigued. All right, so what happened up until now? This book by far has the most suspenseful prologue I've ever read. The prologue really starts with a bonfire that's happening and somebody is getting offed. Somebody wakes up in the middle of the bonfire and they're going to get offed real soon. So they need to figure out who brought them here and why they brought them here. This book revolves around three people. It's Liv, Anna, and Margot. Liv is this ultra wealthy elite woman. She has everything that you could ask for. Like, she's basically a rich woman. Whereas Anna and Margot, they have a different past. So Margot, when she was little, when she was a teenager, she was in this really famous pop band and she was a pop star, and now she isn't anymore. So she's carrying this huge baggage of insecurity. And honestly, Margot is really selfish. She's really self-centered. She just disregards everyone and everything that comes her way. Whereas Anna, she is a complicated character for sure. Anna definitely, like, it's not really clear in the book, but she's going through something. She has really low self-esteem and she follows Margot around. Like, she agrees with her on everything. And Margot really bosses her around. So it's a really interesting dynamics. And Liv really doesn't like bullies. Like, she's dealt with bullies all her life. So she's like, Margot, you're not gonna fool me. You ain't gonna play me. And I know exactly how to deal with people like you. She tries to help Anna as much as possible to just up her self-esteem a little bit. And Margot is also very insecure with Liv, even though they're trying to build a bond together, because Liv has everything that Margot doesn't. Like, even though she was famous, Liv has money, she has great connections, and she's trying to help Anna as much as possible. And Margot's like, why is she helping Anna? Like, it's me who she should be bonding with. Apart from these three POVs, we get another POV. I'm not really sure what those are. It's like Navya the first, something else the second, the third, the fourth. And those chapters are really dark. Like, a murder is happening there. Talks about mental health and things like that. So those chapters get really dark, but I have a hunch, but I am also lost. It's a bonfire. Wow, wow, wow. I am almost 300 pages, 302 pages in. A lot has happened. A lot has happened. And in part two, we go back in time again till a month before the bonfire. And then the bonfire scene also happens, which was something. But to be honest, I thought that the bonfire night's going to be the end chapters and it's going to be like the end climax and someone's going to be reprimanded. But no, it didn't happen that way. The bonfire night actually happened like 70% into the book. I do think from the prologue up until the bonfire night, it really tied together very well. There was nothing that was unrealistic. But in part two, so many shocking moments happened. Like every single chapter was ending in these mini cliffhangers up until the bonfire night. Bonfire night like disappointed me a little bit because it ended very hastily. And it gave me a lot of that Netflix series You vibes. Like you do the worst, but there are no consequences. Like one of the three, Anna, Margot, and Liv, one of these three people have a really dark past and they're doing the worst. They are the main villain of the story, I guess. Can anything worse than the bonfire night that can happen? I don't know, but so far so good. Only this much is left, so I think I might end up finishing it by tomorrow. Let's see what tomorrow holds. I finished You Kill Me First by John Mars. 2 hours every day, successfully done, and one book done. There were like 100 more pages in, and I woke up in the morning and I was itching to finish this book. So I did end up finishing it. So I don't even know if I should call this a challenge reading 2 hours every day. Maybe I should do it differently. Maybe I should just bump it up to 3 hours every day. What do you think? Yeah, sure. Why not? I think I'm going to give this 3 stars. Now, hear me out. I do love John Mars. I think the multiple POV was done so well. And all of these three characters, Liv, Anna, Margot, they were all unhinged in their own way. Yeah, they had their own dark past. They did a lot of shady things when they were younger. And after the bonfire night, I was really intrigued as to what's going to happen, like what more needs to happen. I think they just need to end up in some kind of a climax and face each other, face their own demons. However, this took a weird step. Like it went further than the bonfire night, and things just started getting even crazier than before. I did like the reveal at the end. I did like who the main people in the bonfire night were. And then post that, there were a lot of things that happened before the bonfire as well. So they did end up facing each other. They did end up clearing a lot of things out. The ending of the book, I wanted it to be a little darker. Now I'm going to move on to the next book that I picked in my TBR jar for my May TBR. And I think the prompt was the book with the prettiest cover, and I chose Persuasion by Jane Austen. I've been wanting to read this book for the longest time. After I read Emma and Pride and Prejudice, I was really intrigued. I think this was the next book in line that I always wanted to read. So here it is, Persuasion by Jane Austen as my next May TBR pick.
Persuasion is a beautifully written story of love, regret, and second chances, following Anne Elliot as she navigates family expectations, changing fortunes, and a reunion with someone she never truly forgot.
finished the book. Such a beautiful book. I felt so connected reading this book, and it was such a beautiful romance. It just caught me off guard. I was not expecting what I was initially expecting out of this book. I thought this was going to be a really hard book. I was not expecting the second chance romance that this book has. Other than these people taking long lunches, dinners, brunches, picnics, teas, long walks, other than that, I felt like the connection and the story between Anne and Frederick was just utterly beautiful. The title of the book very aptly describes the entire storyline of the book. This book couldn't have a different title. I think Persuasion was the perfect title that Jane Austen could come up with for this book. The crux of the story was all based on these characters being persuaded by either their own naivety at their age or by their loved ones. Someone has been persuaded by either someone's actions or their own actions or an advice from their relatives, from their loved ones. And I was really intrigued by especially Anne and Frederick's characters, how they were heavily persuaded by people around them. Anne Elliot, she was persuaded by Lady Russell and the social expectations that came with it, the danger of allowing others to overrule your own heart. Even years before the novel began, Anne was persuaded not to marry Captain Wentworth because he was poor and he lacked certain social status. And she trusted her neighbor, Lady Russell's judgment, and she sacrificed her own happiness for the duty and the prudence of her family. So throughout the novel, Anne gradually learns to trust her own feelings and judgment instead of just outside pressure that she was initially doing. By the end, she was persuaded again, but this time by love, maturity, and the mutual understanding of not having social fears anymore. Now, the MMC of her book, Frederick Wentworth, he was also persuaded, wounded by pride, and later by Anne's constancy. Pride can distort judgment, but genuine feelings restores one's trust, which we saw in the book. After Anne rejected him, Wentworth convinced himself that she is weak-minded and, she gets influenced quite easily. So he tries to move on by flirting or trying to go on walks with this other woman, partly out of pride and resentment. Eventually, Anne's quiet loyalty and emotional strength persuades him that she has remained constant and deeply worthy of love. His famous letter at the end marks his emotional surrender. And I also want to mention Sir Walter Elliot, Anne's father. His persuasion was vanity and appearance. Vanity can be a form of self-persuasion as well. Sir Walter, he's ruled almost entirely by people's status, their beauty and their rank, and he rents his, like Kellynch, his house because of financial troubles, but he refuses on any kind of self-reflection whatsoever. He's easily impressed by titles and, fashionable behavior that really doesn't match with one's character. In the book, Jane Austen really explores several kinds of persuasion. I like the fact that social persuasion, the pressures that are formed from your class, your reputation, emotional persuasions of someone's love, regret, pride, grief, self-persuasion, convincing oneself of comforting beliefs. And also at the end, your moral persuasion, where these characters are learning wisdom through experience over the amount of eight years. Initially, I was gonna give this a 5 star because the letter at the end was so beautiful. The entire storyline is quite relatable. I felt like I was kind of reading my own life story in Persuasion. But I'm taking 1 star out because I felt like these dinners, these lunches, even though they were necessary, but I just felt like it just constrained me to read as fast as I would have. I would have finished this in one go. It was so beautiful. I'm giving this a 4 stars. I feel like this is such a beautiful book, a really great classic take on second chance romances. And I just completely felt like when you are naive, when you're young, you get persuaded by so many things. And I feel that in my life as well, that now that I'm older, much wiser, things are very different. Like I see life through a completely different lens than I did like 20 years ago. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Did have a beautiful cover, but the story was more beautiful. Persuasion. Jane Austen does not disappoint. We're back with a new book again, and the third book that I'm reading is Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. Honestly, I can't remember what was the TBR prompt for this one. I think it was a book that mentions a place where you want to go on a vacation or something. So I chose Nile. I mean, I chose Egypt. Not because that was my first preference, but this book was just staring me right at my face. And I thought this is way too obvious. Like, it clearly mentions a country, and I just could not bother reading other books. And I've been wanting to read Death on the Nile for the longest time. I have, of course, watched the movie, the Hercule Poirot movie, and I also watched the BBC version of the movie as well. And they both were quite different from each other, if you know what I mean. If you watch those two, just let me know if you agree with me, because I think I am assuming the BBC version is the exact adaptation of the book, whereas the new one, the movie that came out, I mean, it's changed the characters a little bit. Let's get started with Death on the Nile.
Set aboard a lavish cruise along the Nile, this classic mystery follows Detective Hercule Poirot as he investigates a murder surrounded by jealousies, secrets, and suspects who all seem to have something to hide.
Mandatory smelling of the book. I don't know where my bookmark is. I literally only carried two bookmarks when I came here. And anyway, 262 pages in, and let me just tell you, this book is very, very, very different from any other Agatha Christie books that I've ever read. This book is for sure campy. I heard someone say that this book is campy, and I really didn't know what it meant at that time, to be honest. But as I'm reading it, I agree with whoever said it. I cannot recall. Right off the bat, from chapter one, things are just flowing through, information coming in, plot is assembling itself properly, and there is not one chapter that feels like a filler. And if you have read any other Agatha Christie book, you know there are a lot of books, majority of her books, there are a lot of filler things in between that really slows down the pacing of the book. And maybe it's because it was written way back, and that's how, these conversations happen. But this book is not like that. Right from chapter one, I'm paying 100% attention, because I know there are a few hints that Agatha Christie has put in the books early on in the chapters that will be brought out at the end of the book, like when the climax happens. The prose and the plot gives me a lot of foreboding feeling. So the plot of the book is really simple. It's a love triangle between a couple, Simon and Jacqueline, and Jacqueline's best friend Lynette, who's a really rich heiress. She's one of the richest person in London. And surprise, surprise, Jacqueline and Simon, they break off their engagement. And over the course of a few months, Simon ends up marrying Lynette, the heiress, in a shotgun wedding, and it's a surprise to everyone, Lynette's relatives, and even Jacqueline. Simon and Lynette, they decide to go on a honeymoon in Egypt, and they planned a cruise over the River Nile, us hoping that it'll be really romantic honeymoon for themselves. But it's not a romance novel, it's Agatha Christie. So yeah, there's shit is going to happen. Now, along this honeymoon cruise, there are also some supporting characters who've joined the same cruise as well. I don't know, knowingly, unknowingly, we don't know. There's Lynette's assistant, Lynette's acquaintances, and her uncle, who, just knowing about their marriage, came rushing from United States to Egypt to join this cruise. Jacqueline is also on the cruise and she's stalking these couple since the day they got married. And along with all these people, we have Mr. Hercule Poirot on a vacation in Egypt. And guess what? On the same cruise. He really sympathizes with Jacqueline, whose engagement got broken off to, like, her best friend literally stole her fiance. So he empathized with her and he could sense that Jacqueline had a lot of insecurities with Lynette, not just with Lynette taking her ex, but also the fact that she's, rich, she's successful, she comes from money, and Jacqueline doesn't have much. So yeah, that really drives Jacqueline into a frenzy, and Hercule Poirot observes that from a very early stage. But still, he empathizes with her, and to be honest, like, this book also gives a lot of emotional feels as well. Like, you really connect with Jacqueline and the reason why she's going cuckoo. As soon as a murder happens, Hercule Poirot gets his gears going. Even though he's on vacation, he tries to solve this murder. And then while he was solving the murder, a lot of B stories happen as well, like any other typical Agatha Christie story. Every single person has a motive, and every single person has done something shady on this cruise or even before the cruise. I think I am just 100 pages short, and I believe I can finish this in an hour because it's such a fast read. And this is one of those kind of books where I know I have a sense of where it's heading. It won't be a complete shocker, but that's not the reason why this book is amazing. It's because it packs so much of character development that I haven't seen or read in other Agatha Christie books. This gives me a lot of those. If you've read, like, And Then There Were None, like, this gives me a lot of locked room mystery kind of a vibe, but still packs such emotional depth to each of the characters. Like, the shady things that each of these supporting characters have committed or done. There's a reason behind it. It's not just out of the blue. It makes sense. And the early chapters have kind of established that. So I really like that. There is not one single line that is used just for the sake of using. Like, there's no fillers. This is action after action after action, revelations after revelations after revelations, and emotions after emotions after emotions. Finished this book. It was so emotional. The ending, it was so emotional. It was so raw, and it was so sad. Without giving any spoilers, just, when you love someone, you do anything for them. Then there are two kinds of love. There's one love where it's balanced, okay? It's a balanced kind of love. But then there's this crazy love where you would do anything for the person that you love. And I feel like one of these three characters, they did anything and everything for their love. And when you're when you do that, your actions, of course, they have their consequences. However, when you're trying to wrap your head around them, it doesn't really make any sense, but it also does. My rating for Death on the Nile is 5 stars. It's 5-star material. It's the best Agatha Christie book that I've ever read, and I've read a lot of them. I'm 3 books in with my May TBR, but they were really good picks. So I'm so proud of myself. I feel like I should do the TBR. Like, once I get home, I'm gonna continue doing the Goblet of TBR because I'm picking real bangers. I'm back home. I'm sweating balls right now, but I had a wonderful time up in the mountains, and I read how many books? I needed to read around 5 books, and I read 3 books there. And I have two books left. So I'm going to introduce real quick what my fourth book is. And it's the one that I've been most intrigued by because I knew nothing about this book. And that's what the TBR prompt also said. And it's Fruit of the Flesh by Ivy Ophelia. I was really intrigued because I don't know why I bought this book. I thought that this was a new release, and then the blurb said that it was a gothic romance. I don't know if it's a romance or not, but it has a gothic vibe. The TBR prompt was pick a book whose author you have no idea about, something like that. And I picked Fruit of the Flesh by Ivy Ophelia. I don't know anything about the author. I've never heard of her or him. Just thought that the cover was really interesting. So this is the fourth pick of my May TBR that I'll be posting in June. So yeah, let's get reading.
Fruit of the Flesh follows a young woman whose life begins to unravel as she is pulled into a world of desire, obsession, and faith collide. The deeper she goes, the harder it becomes to tell what's sacred, what's monstrous, and what's real.
It's so freaking humid. It's so hot that I don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel like doing my makeup. I don't feel like doing my hair. I don't feel like doing anything but just eat ice cream all the time. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I finished Fruit of the Flesh by Ivy Ophelia. I have never read a book like this. You know what this book gave me feels of? If anyone, I am sure, like in my days, this movie, The Perfume, was really famous. Like everyone was going around and watching that movie. This book made me feel like that movie, The Perfume. And not so much in the plot itself, just feeling wise. Like for some reason it made me feel like that. Definitely this book has a lot of gothic vibes. I feel like there's a lot of genre packed into one book. It does have a gothic vibe. It has romance. It does have a lot of steamy scenes as well, and it it is thriller. It has suspense. It has like so many things packed into one. One thing that I really loved about this book was the prose. Yes, the prose were so poetic. I mean, I felt like I was in a dream. It read dreamlike, and it's very different than all the other books that I've read. You know, when you do a period movie, there's a certain filter that you see on screen. It's olden days. That's exactly how I felt when I was reading this book. This was 1900s New York. So I was definitely like black and white, a hint of sepia feels when I was reading this book. I don't know if I've said anything about this book. Now, so Petronil, she marries Arcady. Petronil
and Arcady, they're from very different social classes. Now, Arcady used to work as a sculptor at Petra's father's home where she also lived. And Petra just happened to choose this person to marry because she thought that he was like a no nonsense guy. All the other guys she didn't really like. But there's a secret that Petra is hiding, and then there's a secret that Arcady is hiding as well. And both of them, they don't know each other. Arcady definitely doesn't know Petra. There's no love before marriage. She just chose him. Like, okay, this is the person I want to get married. And her parents just wanted to get rid of her. And so they were like, sure, that's the guy you want, go for it. As soon as Petra and Arcady they get married, they have their first night together. Right off the bat, their banter is so interesting. Like the banter is so steamy and it's like very teasing. There's a lot of tension between them. They're all both of them are trying to figure each one out. Arcady doesn't know the kind of person Petra is, and vice versa. They end up forming a lovely bond. So as they uncover, there are a lot of other characters who are introduced, and then there's other different kinds of tension. I gave this book a 3 stars. I love the plot. I love the story. I think the story was so unique. However, all the way at the end, like they were trying to just tie up loose ends hastily, which I don't like. Like you can add 100 more chapters and I'll read it, but just do this book a justice. Other than that, I think the prose were amazing. The plot was amazing. The story was really nice and unique. And those are 3 points that I like. So I gave it 3 stars. All right. Time for my last book to read for this challenge. I'm so excited. I kept this book at the end because I know that it's going to be really nice and cozy. And I wanted to come back home to read this book. And I think this is the thickest book out of the lot that I picked up. The TBR prompt for this one was read a book about friends. So I chose, of course, it was no brainer. Frederick Backman, my friends. Without further yapping, I'm gonna just right off the bat start reading My Friends. This is my first Frederick Backman book, My Friends. My Friends follows a group of teenagers whose unlikely friendship changes each of their lives forever. Years later, one forgotten painting becomes the thread that connects the past to the present, revealing the story behind the people who inspired it. I am halfway through the book. I finished exactly 50% of the book and I am liking it so far. It's one of those books that has really, really simple prose. I felt like I was telling a story to a friend, or a friend was telling a story to me. It felt like a normal conversation. It was barren, it was raw, it had no mask of pretentious prose, being really artistic, being really poetic in the writing. I didn't feel that at all. And while the prose are so simple, the meaning behind these words have such deep thoughts. Under the cast of this humor, Frederick Backman shared such deep stories and thoughts about friendship, about love, love found, love lost, about trauma and abuse. and it was just so intriguing to read. Like I felt like the entire book was so light-hearted, but then it was sharing such deep things, and I didn't even realize till I was reading. Like I'm being emotionally manipulated by the author into thinking that this is a light book, but it definitely wasn't. It was telling me such hard-hitting stories about regular people and things that happened to them. There are four friends, and then there's Louisa, who's embarking upon this amazing journey. While getting to know the stories of these four friends that were once in a painting that somehow Louisa is in possession of. It's bizarre, however, it's bizarre, but it's so relatable. The way that Frederick Backman introduces characters is so unique. I mean, I feel like I already know a character. I know that particular character even before that they've been introduced, and it's because it's such a unique storytelling. I really like Louisa as a character. I feel like she is an 18-year-old who at times is so mature beyond her age, and then there are times she becomes this young girl, like she's very childlike at some moments as well, because Louisa never had a regular childhood. Like she's been in the system for the longest time. Like she's been through so many foster homes. So she never had that stable childhood. She had to move home from home, trying to find a stable home for herself. But she could not. And then she also didn't have any like parental figure that she can look up to or any sibling other than this one character who was her friend Fish. Other than that, which was later in the day, so I feel like she never really had a regular childhood, and so at times when she's acting like a child, she's really going into her safe space, and when she's trying to act like an adult, she is trying to protect herself. These are the things that you have already understood about the characters because you've read these tidbits of their personality. Usually, I'm not a huge fan of these journey plot. Like, I am really into like complex stories and complex characters, but like, all right, I'm gonna read the other 50% of the book and then I'm gonna come back and tell you my final thoughts. Finished. This is a book about a journey that Louisa, an 18-year-old, takes to figure out the story behind her favorite painting that her favorite artist made. And it means a lot to Louisa, and that painting also means a lot to the friends of the painter who painted this amazing world famous painting. And during this journey, Louisa meets a lot of characters. Honestly, in between, I felt like I was watching Jab We Met when they had that train scene. I was like, I hope that the story doesn't go that way, and it did not. It was just one chapter, which was fine, I guess. And the story that she's trying to find out is about these four friends, including the painter and their childhood and where everyone is right now and how they were when they were little, like all the hardships they had to go through. It's all about those. And that's where the darker things come into picture. And so it felt light and heavy at the same time. I can't really explain how it felt. Like it felt like you're feeling these deep feelings, but it did not make me depressed. But one thing I absolutely loved about this book was what this book tells you about life. There are two kinds of people: people who think that life is short, and then people who think that life is long. And the author keeps telling us that, life truly is really long. And by that, he means is you have literally one life. You have one life, so it's time to make the most of it. And there are instances in this book where there are certain characters who've had really hard life. Like there's physical abuse, there's a lot of trauma, um, there's a lot of hardships that people have gone through in this book. However, that does not define you. I mean, of course it's traumatic, of course it takes a lot of time to recover from that, and that's how you feel like life probably is really long. This is something that this character Ted says. It's a funny thing, the person we fall in love with we hardly ever call by their name, because it's somehow just so obvious that it's you I'm talking to, that it's you I'm always thinking of. Who else? And it's light, but it's so cute. And the other one is about disappointment, and it says disappointment is a powerful thing. Used correctly, it is stronger than fear, more terrible than physical pain. If you see it in the eyes of the one you love, you'll do almost anything to make it stop. Really nice little tidbits. But there are things that didn't really touch my heartstrings, and it's the fact that I felt like I know what was going to happen. This is, yes, it's all about journey, but it's not like an epic journey like The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. It's a mediocre journey about an everyday person where these ridiculous things are happening to her. I did enjoy reading parts of it, but then where the story just kind of felt stagnant, and I felt like this could have been 100 pages shorter than it actually is. And for that reason, I think it disappointed me a little bit. I gave this a 3 stars, and that ends my 3 hour reading challenge and 5 books that I read in those challenge. The challenge has ended finally. As usual, I had an amazing time in doing this 3 hour reading challenge. I also enjoyed the entire process of picking these books out of my TBR pile and knowing that these were the books that I thought of first every time I read a prompt. It was just really amazing process. I also loved all the books that I picked for this 3 hour reading challenge, from thriller books like You Killed Me First by John Mars, Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, then moving on to ultimate romance classic Jane Austen Persuasion, and then I moved on to Gothic, and then I don't know what to call my friends by Frederick Backman. Now the big question is, will I continue reading 3 hours for every day? I don't know about every day, but I will try my best to read at least 2 hours every day, because I think 2 hours I can manage. 3 hours would be a stretch. Thank you so much for watching the videos. Please do tell me if there's any other challenge or any other genre that you'd like me to do a challenge on, and I will definitely read those books and post it. Until then, this is Trisha signing off, and I shall see you soon.